Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is Societal Narcissism. This video is sponsored by contribution from Teresa. But before I get to the video, please go to the description box and click on the Rumble link. I ask everybody to watch the Rumble version of this video as I am monetized over there, and it'll help with the channel greatly. On to the subject matter. Teresa sent in another video clip for me to analyze how the boomers were taught to hate, in quotations, themselves. Let's go.
If you watch my channel, you know that I like to pay attention to what Hollywood is whispering into the public's ear, especially the propaganda that was produced before the internet and before there was any real competition, because this was the golden age of propaganda.
The golden age of communism. And I said once they were able to censor Senator Joe McCarthy, and just yelling McCarthyism became a thing. Joe McCarthy had already said that the government, the music, the entertainment, Hollywood, the media have been infiltrated by communists. And that's who was perpetrating all the propaganda. This is why we are where we are today.
And propaganda was concentrated into the sights and sounds of films. Propaganda that took months and sometimes years to plan and produce. Propaganda so well crafted and compelling that it was profitable. The target audience paid for the luxury of being programmed and then left the theaters wanting more. And it was during this golden age of...
And that's the funny thing. We pay for all this. We've paid to be brainwashed. We've paid to be propagandized to. We pay for it all and then ask for more.
Propaganda that the propagandists produced the best results. With complete control of the national narrative on both the large and small screens in America, the subtle whispers coming from Hollywood got louder and louder and more extreme, desensitizing its audience. Lately, we've seen a wave of anti-white hate. And while it might be reaching a fever pitch now, this is something that has been cultivated slowly and carefully for longer than many of us have even been.
White people are stupid. White people are the worst. But it's always white people look, the people with the anti-white hate are all the liberal, rich white kids, ex-theater drama club kids. It's them. That's why I keep saying, bully the theater kids. Don't stop. Ban them outright. All drama theater clubs, K through 12, private and public schools, banned outright, because this is the shit it produces. A bunch of cosplaying losers in their adult years.
Alive. I was curious as to when exactly this message really began to be mainstream, the first real overt attacks on the white Christian majority. So I began by looking back at films that had been nominated or had won Oscars, as this would demonstrate that the film wasn't some kind of fringe creation, but that it represented the mainstream messaging being put out by Hollywood. And while I found several examples going back much further than I expected, including the 1952 film High Noon that John Wayne called out.
So at least he's in the right ballpark. He knows it's at least 1952. It goes, I'm sure, before that as well. Because before that, we're in a world war to do what? To save communism. (1952) film, 1952 to 1954 is the McCarthy hearings, the lead up, and then all the bullshit that happened. Everybody's like, then turns on McCarthy. No, you're the problem, McCarthyism. And boom, now all of these industries that have already been infiltrated by the Marxists and the communists have carte blanche. And they have been running roughshod ever since over Western society and Western culture.
That as being the product of anti-American communist writers. And there were certainly whispers belittling white Christian males and depicting them as weak and cowardly. But these whispers, 27 years later, as the baby boomers began to come of age and start having families, these whispers had evolved into shouts by 1979 in the film Norma Rae. I think it's important to get to know the...
Again, and remember, this is what I'm talking about, that 1954 moment, that censure of Joe McCarthy, that opened the door for communism in these industries. Not that the door was they were already in. I mean, the door was already ajar. It just swung it open at that point.
the kind of messaging that the baby boomers were subjected to that led to some of the problems and discrimination we face today. Now, there are certainly other movies that have the same anti-white, anti-American themes that Norma Rae does. I feel as if none quite encapsulate the absolute contempt the filmmakers had for European Americans, their culture, their religion, and even their system of government. In fact, it's so on the nose, it's kind of ridiculous. When you watch it today, it's extremely transparent. Norma Rae was written by Jewish writers Irving...
Oh, it's an awful movie. It's like it was like one of those movies that the boomers never shut up about. That's barely watchable. It's a barely watchable movie.
Ravitch and Harriet Frank, and I mentioned they were Jewish because in many ways, this film is about Jewish identity coming into contact with white identity, and then attempting to change it because it sees white identity as inferior. So it's important to understand that this movie...
Listen, the tribe sees everybody as inferior. The reason they attack on white identity specifically is because everyone else thinks that they're white and they're not white. They don't think of themselves as white. But they think everyone else is inferior. Goyim.
The movie was written by Jewish writers and directed by a Jewish director, co-starring a Jewish actor, and that this is the lens that they looked at white America through. This is so important because if you understand that aspect, and you understand that this movie was awarded 2 Oscars and nominated for 2 others, including Best Picture and even nominated for the highest prize at the Cannes Film Festival.
And like I said, it's big chill level trash.
So this view, given the demographics in Hollywood, arguably represents the Jewish view of white America in 1979, which I think is important to understand. And it's one of the things I like about older movies, because it's kind of like a time capsule. Now, the movie begins at a textile factory somewhere in the South. We are introduced to the film's namesake, Norma Rae, who is a hard-working single mother, but who, along with, quite frankly, every other white person in the entire movie, is uneducated, ignorant, and racist. In fact, they make this extremely clear right off the bat when the film's hero, a left-wing Jewish labor organizer who comes uninvited from New York to try to unionize the textile mill where the majority of the townspeople work, thus saving them from the evil white factory owners, but moreover, their ignorant hillbilly selves. And wouldn't you know it, that ignorance rears its ugly face the moment he rolls into town, and he tries to rent a room from Norma Rae's father.
And what happened when these types in reality came into these towns, into these factories? Oh, the factory owners packed up and moved their shit to Mexico, moved their shit to China, moved their shit to India, moved their shit. How did that work out?
And her father finds out he's Jewish.
As far as I'm concerned, all of you people are communists or agitators or crooks or Jews or all 4 rolled together.
Reuben tells Norma's father that he's stupid for letting the factory rip him off and calls him a schlemiel.
Today's inflation, that makes you a bit of a schlemiel.
And Norma's father chases him off, and he goes off and rents a room at the local hotel. The same hotel where we find out that the hard-working single mom, Norma, is having an affair with some other ignorant white trash person who, in keeping with his white trash persona, decides to start beating her. She leaves and encounters Reuben on her way out, and he gives her...
It's every boom. This is why you're seeing what you're seeing. Like, this is what these boomers have been fed and have been feeding each other now for 60, 70 years.
Some ice for her face, and the two start to get to know each other. The first thing the writers do is draw a stark contrast between Norma, the simple white woman with the limited vocabulary who seems stunned that Reuben has books. The implication, of course, is that Norma doesn't read much, or if she even knows how to read at all. And between Reuben's Jewish girlfriend back home in New York, who we never meet, but who's named Dorothy Finkelstein, and who is described as a Harvard graduate lawyer. Then we go back to Norma's ignorance and bigotry when she says, after asking Reuben if he's a Jew, she says, and it's not supposed to be a joke, she says she thought Jews had horns on their head.
Nobody ever thought that. Nobody ever thought. Like, it's all such over-the-top stuff. And when you see this stuff as a kid, it's like you don't understand it. You don't understand when they're talking about Jews or the criticisms. Like, as a kid, you it's not something a kid's going to grasp. So it's very easy to get propagandized by this stuff as a child. It's not until you get into the adult world where you see the criticisms and you're like, oh, now I understand why people, now I get it.
I heard you all had horns.
Circumcised, yes. Horns, no.
This scene,
It's the same. It's the same thing they did in the movie, and I should do American History X. This is how Hollywood gaslights the public, because they'll give you 95% of the truth right there, with especially when they're talking about something, racially stereotypical, like whether it be Jewish or what they were doing in American History X was black, where it's like the quote unquote skinhead Nazi Edward Norton is making rational arguments the entire time to the Jewish boyfriend of his mother at the dinner. It's the dinner table scene. And then all of a sudden, suddenly the conversation takes this hard left where it's just Nazi this and and the girlfriend's all all excited. Like, that's not reality. That's not how these conversations go down. But you're thinking as a young person in your younger years, oh, that's how they think. And all this, I'm on the same line of thinking as them. And that's to train you to make you think that that's a real thing that's going on. To make you think the exact same way as a Nazi up until a point. Same thing they're doing here. That's not nobody. I thought you had horns. Like, stop it. Stop it. No adult walking around with a job and who's not functionally mentally handicapped thinks that. Jeez. But that's how they do it. That's how they gaslight you. That's how they manipulate you. They give you 95% of the truth, and then they make this hard left where they make you think you are on the same line of thinking as this person who will then do X, Y, and Z. Nope, don't buy it. It's all a manipulation.
is the first scene with the two main characters meeting and establishing a relationship and setting a tone for the rest of the film. And it's through this lens that the writers and the director view white America, and to make extra sure that the audience understands that the white people are viewed as different. When Norma says, now after meeting a Jew for the first time, that he doesn't seem that different than she is, he says this.
As far as I can see, you don't look any different from the rest of us.
Well, we are.
You are? Well, what makes you different?
We're better.
History.
So
History. It's so arrogant. It's so obnoxious, and they put it right. They'll put it right in your face. I'm better than you. We're the chosen people. You're Goyim.
It's an affirmation that this Jewish identity makes him different than Norma, that he sees himself as different than these local town people.
The chosen people. And I've seen it in the comments. People who followed me, subscribed to me, donated for years and years. The first criticism off the deep end. Because they think they're better. They believe that chosen people bullshit.
A difference he'll bring up later in the film also, but it's a difference that the writers and director wanted to make clear right from the start. So as the movie progresses, Reuben tries to get the mill workers to unionize, and he's treated as an outsider. He later sees Norma at a baseball game, and we get more symbolism reinforcing that Reuben is a high-class fish out of water in this backwards town, when he's unable to stomach the hot dog served at the baseball game. But at the same time, he offers to pay for Norma's food out of charity. Now, Reuben's superiority over Norma is expounded upon when she begins to talk about her baby daddies, and the dynamic of master and teacher that will go on throughout the rest of the movie really begins. Fast forward a little bit, Norma runs into Reuben once again, this time when she's on a date with a local and equally ignorant and simple white guy. She invites him to sit down with them, and Reuben once again takes on the role of the mentor. Not only is this easily seen through the camera with the way the shots are framed, with Reuben much larger than Norma and her date, like a father talking to his kids, but he again rejects the local food and drink because he's dissatisfied with the quality, and then drives the two home because they're too irresponsible and drunk, and again looks down on her.
A hot dog could be pork product. If it's not kosher, he's not going to eat it. That's the issue.
As she's vomiting at the side of the road. It's continuing to build.
Also, it's an inverse of reality. That the charity is coming from the Jewish man and not vice versa. because we know there's a money flow going, and it's all going one way. Okay, it ain't coming back this way. You can look no further than AIPAC and Israel funding, and Christians save the Jews in every commercial, and like, stop. It's gaslighting. It's more gaslighting. It's the inverse.
Build this dynamic of superior and inferior. Now, a short time later, Norma gets married rather abruptly with the man that she went on a date with, who is also a single parent. The wedding is small, and the marriage seems to be kind of lacking in romance, but it's rather a result of two impoverished single parents coming to an arrangement of convenience. Norma's new husband is always viewed as kind of a simple, average man, lacking inspiration, and we get the idea she's settling to get out of her parents' house. The story moves on to the first meeting of the mill employees that want to maybe unionize. The meetings.
So you want to denigrate father-mother relationship. It's all communist propaganda.
It's held in a black church, and nearly all of the attendees, other than Norma, are black. And again, all the black characters are seen as good, decent people that want to help out, and all the white people are very suspicious of Reuben and never want to hear him out. After the meeting, Reuben goes to the mill to enforce, I guess, a federal regulation that allows him to post his union literature, and once again is met by this caricature of basically a southern plantation owner. Like, that's what these characters are. And he has to threaten to sue unless he's allowed to post his notices because they're giving him such a hard time. And then Norma, inspired by his feistiness and the way he handles these plantation owners, decides to finally volunteer and work for the union.
Understand something, because I've been through union drives at Macy's. When I was with Macy's, I've been through, 3 or 4 of them. Macy's had 4 stores that were actually that were unionized, decades ago. But this was the weakest union you ever saw. But every now and again, they get a store where they were able to get a union drive going. And what the union rep would always do is they would target the dumbest employee they could find, the dumbest, most influenceable, with the biggest mouth, okay, who was not as close as mentally handicapped as you can get them without actually being there. That's who the union rep would target. And the union reps were garbage. These union guys were such sociopathic monsters because the union was so weak that the union employees actually had it worse than the regular employees. Like, I'm like, why are we even fighting this? Like, why are we even, if we pay the union people less, why are we even fighting this? Because they don't want the idea of a union getting more stores, and then overall you're going to end up having to pay more. So That's how these union drives work. They target the dumbest, most vocal employee they can find.
Repercussions that she receives from volunteering for the union. The first enemy, if you will, that she makes is, oddly enough, from her Christian church. She goes to the church and she makes this speech about how she's been going there since she was 6 years old, and implies to the preacher that if he doesn't support the union and let them meet at his church, that he's not really a man of God, and there's something fundamentally wrong.
And there it is. Replacing yourself with God. You're deciding what the word of God is. I mean, all this is boomernomics right now.
With his church. Now, isn't this an important detail, considering the context of this film? Not just the faith of the writers and the director, but just the relationship the left has always had with Christianity. That somehow, by not supporting their agenda, that Christianity is illegitimate. So in this moment, Norma Rae, the ignorant country Christian bumpkin, who is now formally being mentored by the benevolent leftist Jewish labor organizer from New York, discards her lifelong religion in favor of this new ideology, because Christianity was evil. The next enemy she makes is her bigoted, racist white neighbors who don't...
Christianity is the following of Christ. Okay, how is this guy related to Jesus? Like, it's not even a legitimate argument. It doesn't even make sense.
Like that she's bringing black people into her home for union meetings. And then her evil white racist husband, who's appalled by the idea that she invited black people over to their home.
There's a bunch of black men in there. You're going to get us in a whole lot of trouble.
I ain't never had any trouble with black men.
But Norma Rae, thanks to Reuben, is now totally woke. She's breaking free of the racism that afflicts every other white person in the movie, and together they begin to overcome the backward ways of the whites. No scene in any well-made movie is unintentional, and it's with this knowledge that I find it peculiar that with the constant putting down of white Christians in this film, and not exactly subtle idolization of Reuben, that it wasn't enough for the filmmakers to have Norma always inferior to Reuben, for the dynamic of the film to be that of a patient teacher mentoring a slow student, but that they decided to take it a step further. In this scene, where Reuben gets his shirt dirty and decides to take his clothes off and go skinny dipping. And you see, it's not enough for Norma to idolize Reuben, to hang on his every word. She also has to want him sexually. But Reuben, ever the patient custodian of wisdom and morality, doesn't take advantage of Norma's burning desire for him. So she's left frustrated. Honestly, in my view, this film is so much more condescending to whites than the handful of movies that Hollywood would make 10 years later about the white woman who goes to the schools in the ghetto and teaches the black kids how to graduate or dance or whatever those ridiculous movies have.
Yeah, it's on the same level, like I said, as American History X. Does the same exact thing. It gives you 95% of the true nature of the people being criticized, and then the people criticizing them takes a hard friggin' left that is unrealistic, that is some kind of caricature, and that is to bring you down and make you like, yeah, and then like, oh, wait, this person's on my side? It is an intricate, very, very well orchestrated gaslight.
Them do, because at least in those movies, there was always that moment where the white lady who came to the inner city would have a learning moment, where the disadvantaged kids would teach her something about their culture or maybe about herself. In Norma Rae, that never, ever happens. Reuben is the perfect man, the savior come to rescue the poor, stupid white people from themselves. And this scene really highlights that as clearly as anything can. I'm not going to go into detail of the rest of...
And again, just the premise alone. I mean, look at the reality of the world. When do the Jews come and rescue anybody? Who's rescuing who here? Historically, over and over and over again. In history, who have they ever rescued? Other than themselves. Who?
Of the film, because it's really kind of just this continued theme of Norma being woke and fighting for the Union and ignoring her husband and her family and fighting the evil white racists and trying to impress Reuben. Towards the end of the film, she's reminded that just like the food in her town, Norma doesn't measure up to Reuben's standards. Just as her husband, despite providing for the family, even after she gets herself fired, and he takes care of the children while she's out running around being woke, he will never measure up to her standards. He knows this, and he accepts this, but the writers frame it like it's somehow he owes this to her, because she's a strong, independent woman now. He should be so lucky. And now this independent woman...
And this is where you boomer... Like, it's movies like this, like these type of messages that get you, like, you give your boomer mother the attitude she had when growing up.
That after...
Like, they're owed something. Like, she's owed something.
For finally helping to unionize the mill, having done everything she could to help Reuben impose his values on this community, this independent woman is left standing in the middle of the road, staring longingly after him as he drives away. And
there he goes, driving out of town. The chaos he's wrought.
Is the story of Norma Rae. Hollywood's view of...
And what would have happened to that factory by the mid-'80s, early '90s, mid-'90s? Gone. After NAFTA, gone. And everybody's now addicted to fentanyl and on opioids.
White America, presented to the world in 1979. A view that won Sally Fields an Oscar for Best Actress for representing white people as ignorant, racist hillbillies with the need to be fixed. People who can't determine their own destiny until someone like Reuben comes to town and shows them that they're doing it all wrong. And then, after remaking it in his own image, leaves.
Yep.
Moves on to the next town.
Yep.
And then the next. And then the next. And then the next. For Black Pilled, I'm Devin Stack.
It's almost like somebody's been kind of telling you about this and for a while, and it's a good video. You know, and there are movies, you know, boomer movies all littered the sphere with them. Whether it be The Big Chill or something like American History X, where you are just gaslighted over and over and over again. And they give you 95% of the truth to make you think that, yeah, you're agreeing along, and then they make that hard left. That's not real. It's not real. They want you to think it's real because you're seeing it up on the movies, you're seeing it on the big screen. It looks real, but it's not. It's to make you think. If you think this way, then you're thinking the same way as these people. And these people don't even exist. So, thank you, Teresa, for another contribution in the video. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions in the comment section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, something you'd like to expose, you'd like to set up a Skype, a phone call, have a private video made, you'd like to sponsor a video like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or just make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supported, growing, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you. Without you guys, all this goes away. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with either the Cash App, Zelle, PayPal, and email links in the description box below. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't. And be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. Also, be sure to subscribe to both my channels on Rumble. And if you haven't watched this video on Rumble yet, please do. Even a click helps. Follow me on X and Telegram as well. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been Societal Narcissism. Take care, everyone.